Okay, welcome back to the video section. We're doing section 3.2 from our homework here. And a lot of these problems are going to go a little faster than the previous problems we had. We're going to talk about a few different topics around what makes up different types of polynomials. So when we're talking about polynomials, we should be talking about, okay, what are different types of polynomials? So first off, a monomial is a polynomial. So a monomial, a binomial, and trinomial are all polynomials. So all these things are polynomials. In this case, though, a monomial is something that has one term. A binomial is something that has two terms. A trinomial is something that has three terms. And then a polynomial is a monomial, binomial, or trinomial, or can be used to describe anything that has four or more terms. So what's an example of a monomial? A monomial could be 3p, could be f, could be a to the second b, anything like that, but one term. A binomial could be x plus 3, where x is a term and 3 is a term. How are the terms separated? By plus and minus signs. It could be a to the second minus b to the third. That's another example of binomial. A trinomial could be something like x squared minus 3x minus 4, because there's 1, 2, 3 terms, and each of those terms are separated by in this case minus signs. We can go ahead and change this to a plus if you want. So we have x squared minus 3x plus 4, 1, 2, 3, 3 terms in that polynomial to make it a trinomial. All right, and then all of these would be constituted as polynomials here. So we're given the, let's see, 1, 2, given the following trinomial, and what it's asking for is find the degrees of the given polynomial. So when it says to find the degree, what it wants us to do is, irregardless of the basis, it just wants us to take the exponents here and then add them up. So let's say we have y to the second x to the fifth, 2 plus 5, that's going to be 7. We have y to the ninth times x, this is 9 plus 1, that's 10. Then we have y to the fifth times x to the third, or 5 plus 3 is 8. And then the degree of the polynomial is simply determined by which term has the highest sum of exponents. So the second term has a sum of exponents of 10. Therefore, the degree of this polynomial is going to be 10. And the other question they're asking, is it a monomial, binomial, or trinomial, or none of these? Well, it's definitely a polynomial, but since it has 1, 2, 3 terms, it is going to be a trinomial. So let's go ahead and move up to question 2 now, and let's see what that says. Find the degree of the following polynomial and determine whether it is a monomial, binomial, trinomial, or none of these. One term is a 9, another term is 8x to the third, so that is going to be a binomial. Here we don't have anything that contains an exponent, but this term contains an exponent of 3, therefore the degree of polynomial is going to be 3. Next question. Determine the degree of the polynomial. This has no exponent at all. This has an exponent of 1. This has an exponent of 5. So the degree of polynomial is going to be 5. So that's how we find the degree of polynomials. You may see one question about it, but it's not an overwhelmingly important topic in the higher concepts of mathematics. Next question, that says simplify the polynomial by combining like terms. So remember when we talked about combining like terms in class, that we're going to, if we have the same variable here with the same exponent, we can combine everything. All we have to do is just add and subtract the numbers. 5 minus 4 is 1. 1 plus 8 is 9. That's going to be 9x. Here, we have to be careful what are like terms, and because we have things with different exponents now, we have to be careful of what we can combine and what we can't combine. So I'm going to take a square to box what has an x squared. This has an x squared. Here we have x to the third, so I'll circle that. Here I'll circle that. And then this 5 is kind of lingering around. So we have a few things that we can kind of work to combine. First off, the answer here is going to have a plus 5 because there's nothing to combine that with. We have here a 1x squared, so we're going to have, excuse me, 1 plus 5 over 6x, or 1x plus 5 over 6x. And here we're going to have negative 1 over 6 minus 1 over 4. Now, if you have a decent graphing calculator, it can do these calculations for you and give you your answers back as a fraction. But for the first one here, I'm just going to make this 1 a 6 over 6 plus 5 over 6 so that I'm putting x's with each of these, 11 over 6 x, not x, but x squared, excuse me. And here for these, I got negative 1 over 6 x to the third minus 1/4 x to the third. So let me go ahead and rewrite this on a separate piece of paper. So I have negative 1/6 x to the third, negative 1/4 x to the third. Again, what you're really focusing on, you know your final answer is going to have, let me just move this over a little bit, x to the third, it's what's the number going to be in front. You have negative a sixth and negative a fourth. You're going to carry out this subtraction. This is a numbers game at this point, but if you have a good scientific calculator, it should be able to produce this calculation for you and get it as a fraction, which is why you don't want to be playing games with fractions. Get a calculator to do this work for you. But if you've got to play the game, if I have 6 and 4, what I'm going to do with this is I have to make these fractions equal if I'm going to add them, because these are both negative, so we need to add them. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to multiply this fraction. Let's take a look at this here. Let's take 1 over 6 minus 1 over 4. So I'm going to multiply this by 2 over 2, and this by 3 over 3. Why? 2 times 6 is 12, 4 times 3 is 12. And that's going to get me, bring this up a little more, negative 2 over 12 minus 3 over 12, giving me negative 5 over 12. And that's going to be the number that's going to go next to x to the third. So we've got the x to the third term. We have the x to the second term, call it that now. So we have 11 over 6 x squared minus 5 over 12 x to the third plus 5. I don't see you going crazy in a question like that, but they're just testing your ability if you can recognize what to combine and if you can do that correctly. So if you see the question on the homework, calculator could definitely go a long way to help you with that. Perform the indicated operation. So what I'll usually do in a question like this, because we have an addition sign, I can take away the parentheses entirely. That's going to give me here negative 6x plus 2 plus 5x squared plus 6x minus 4. So I'm going to see what I can combine. Nothing is going to combine with this 5x squared. However, I should be able to combine negative 6x and positive 6x, and then positive 2 and negative 4. So first off, 5x squared, that's going to be just remain the same because nothing combines. Negative 6x and plus 6x are just going to cancel each other out. And then 2 minus 4 is going to give me minus 2. So that's going to be my answer for number 6. Number 7 is where you must be a little careful, because there's a negative on the outside. And the way the game gets played with this one, the quick way of doing this, and we talked about this in class a little bit last week, is I can go ahead and rewrite this, but I have to change the sign. So if I have this negative on the outside here, the way I can kind of do this quickly is to write positive 8x now as negative 8x, and write negative 9 as positive 9. So what I've done is I've distributed that negative through by multiplying by negative 1, and I've changed the signs. What can I combine? 2x, negative 8x, that's going to give me negative 6x plus 9, and that problem is now complete. Let's take a look at number 8. So in this problem, they're just simply taking a problem that you're used to seeing across, and they're writing this vertically like you used to do subtraction back in grammar school, even middle school perhaps. So all I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to keep the top the same. So it's going to be 9x to the third plus 8x squared minus 8x minus 9. But all I'm going to do now is I'm going to write all the terms on the inside. This is positive, this is positive, this is positive, this is positive. I have a negative on the outside. All these positives are now going to become negatives. So I'm going to write this as negative 3x to the third, negative 4x to the second, negative 3x, negative 8. And from here, and notice here, I'm not writing where I'm trying to put everything underneath itself. You could if you want, and in some ways it may make it a little easier for you to see what combines and everything. But I'm just going to go ahead and combine like terms in the following way, but you can kind of look at this like vertically if you want. I'm going to take the 8x squared, combine it with negative 4x squared. Trying to use different shapes here. 9x to the third minus 3x to the third, or 9 minus 3, that's 6x to the third. 8x squared minus 4x squared, that's plus 4x squared. Negative 8x, negative 3x, that's negative 11x. And then negative 9, negative 8, that's negative 17. And that's going to be your final answer to that. All right, so the kind of problem we're seeing here, number 9, this one is a tricky one. It's going to tell us to subtract, okay? And because it says subtract from, that means that we're going to have two things going on here. So I'm going to go ahead and make a place for those two things. So because it says subtract from, remember, this is a turnaround word. So whatever you see first is going to go second, then what follows is actually going to go first. So I'm going to take 3x plus 3 because I'm subtracting this from what I get here. What's here? The sum of this. So actually in this part here, I'm going to have the sum of two things. This is going to be 8x plus 2 and then 6x plus 4. Okay, carrying this work out then. I'm going to have, first let's just kind of clean this up a little bit. 8x and 6x, that's going to give me 14x. 2 plus 4, that's going to give me 6. Now, because we're subtracting this, we need to put a parenthesis around this so that I can rewrite this here with changing the sign of everything. That's going to be minus 3x minus 3. And I'll just do this kind of bit of work here without going to the other part of the page. So now, I'm going to have 14x minus 3x, that's 11x, and then 6 minus 3 will give me plus 3. So there is going to be my final answer in simplified form. All right, let's go ahead. Ooh, holy crap, did I do that whole thing? Guys, this is one of those I'm actually going to go ahead and do again since I didn't throw it here. I apologize for this one. So I didn't realize this wasn't showing here, so I'm going to move this one up here again, and I'll walk you through this again. So, but I'm going to leave my mistake in here, so I apologize for that. In the question 9, it says subtract this from this quantity here. So I'm subtracting two things, so it's going to look like this. I'm subtracting two things. It says to subtract this from this quantity. From is a flip word. And because from is a flip word, that means what's going to come first is going to go last. And I need to put that in parentheses. But what's the first part? The first part is the sum of these two things. So the first part is the sum of two things. What are those two things? 8x plus 2, and then 6x plus 4. So let's go ahead and clean this up, and then we'll clean this up too. 8x plus 6x, that's going to give me 14x. 2 plus 4, that gives me 6. Now I got this minus sign, and I need to distribute that through. So that's going to be negative 3x. Oops, I forgot one thing here. That's going to be plus 3. But because it's positive, it's now going to become negative. So I found this sum. I distribute the negative. We now have things we can combine more easily. Giving us 14x minus 3x is 11x, and 6 minus 3 is equal to 3. Usually I wouldn't go through the trouble of showing that again, but that was a really complicated question, so I want to make sure to definitely do that. Remember that when you're watching the video anytime, if you want to take an opportunity to go ahead and stop the video and try some of the questions if you want to try them, please please feel free to do that. This next problem here, I'm going to go ahead and get another sheet of paper out. So I am can kind of show the work because there's more work on this paper than I have room on it. So the problem in this one is going to read the following way. It's going to read as 6x plus 7 minus negative 8x squared minus 3x plus 7. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and bring 6x plus 7 down, no parentheses. What I'm going to do is, whatever the sign is on the inside because of the negative here, I just switch the sign. So negative 8x squared becomes positive 8x squared. Negative 3x becomes positive 3x. Positive 7 becomes negative 7. And now I'm free to combine all the terms that are like each other. In the case of 8x squared, there's nothing that will combine with it. In the case of 6x and positive 3x, these two things combine, and then I can combine the numbers. So we're going to be left with 8x squared. 6x plus 3x is 9x. And then 7 minus 7 cancel, leaving me this as my final answer to question 10. All right, so let's take a look at number 11 now. Add and subtract as indicated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this problem here below. Let's make this a little bigger if we can. Okay. And I'm going to write everything without parentheses. The big change is going to come here when I distribute the negative. So this is going to be 2x to the second plus 5x minus 3. There's a plus here, so everything can stay the same. This 3x squared has no plus next to it, so we need to put that in because it's positive. And now this 5x squared is positive inside the parenthesis. It's going to become negative here. And this 17 is negative. Now it's going to become positive. So let me go ahead and box my 2x squared, box my positive 3x squared, box my negative 5x squared. 2 plus 3 is 5, minus 5, 0. That is gone. We have 5x plus 6x. That's it. No other x terms. 5x plus 6x, 11x. Negative 3, negative 3 plus 16, that'll be 13. 13 plus 70, that'll be 30. Give me a final answer of 11x plus 30. I have a couple more questions that are kind of like extension questions. Let's see how you do with these here. So you recall that if you want to find the perimeter of something, we're going to have to add everything. And all the sides of this object are given, unlike some of the questions here. So if we write this out the long way, what we'd have to do is we'd have to get all the numbers. So we just want to make sure that we get everything. So watch how I'm going to do this. This is going to be 28, check. Next one, plus 8z, check. Plus 60, check. Plus 16z, check. Plus 48, check. Plus 12z, check. Plus 40, check. Plus 36z, check. So that way you count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Because a common mistake that students may make on this is simply just forget to omit one of the things that needs to be combined. So let's figure out what our like terms are going to be. And because everything is positive here, everything is just going to simply get added. So if you take 8z plus 16, that's 24. 24 plus 2, that's 36. 36 plus 36, that's going to be 72z. Oh, guys, I'm sorry. Forget you weren't seeing the 28 over here, so just noticing that now. Okay, so now I've got 28 plus 60 plus 48 plus 40. Okay, so you can follow along with the calculator if you can't do this in your head like myself. So 28 plus 60, that's 88. 88 plus 48, 128, 136. 136 plus 40 should be 176. So the perimeter of this object is going to be 72z plus 176. Okay, and finally we have this last question in 13 here. Let's go and move this up a little bit. And all we're going to do is, since we have everything positive, we can just go ahead and combine what's like. So we have x squared plus 8x squared. That's going to be 9x squared. We have positive, so let's just kind of circle these. Since this is positive here, we don't have to change any of the signs, so we can work with the problem as is. We have plus 2xy. We have minus 7xy. So plus 2 minus 7 will be negative 5xy. And then finally here we have negative y squared plus 10y squared, or 10 minus 1 will give me plus 9y squared. And that is section 3.2 complete.